Today, I want to share a rant on spiritual shaming. This is something that I have been observing quietly for some time in the personal development industry. And I say industry intentionally because the world of personal development and spiritual development has become an industry that preys on people's weaknesses, an industry that preys on people's shadows, an industry that makes people feel bad for feeling bad. And it's really fucked up. There are too many people in the spiritual and personal development industries that are preaching disempowering bullshit versus empowering truth. And this is a rant on spiritual shaming. The spiritual world wants to make everything about love and light. They want you to forget about your shadows and your darkness and the parts of you that may not be seen or perceived as good. They want you or expect you to just elevate into this space of being all love and all light by bypassing your shit, by bypassing what it is that you're really going through, what it is that you're really experiencing, what it is that makes you you. In all of reality, we have duality. It is a thing. The yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine, the light and the dark, our shadows and our light, the good and the bad, the good and the evil. These things are needed. They are necessary for us to even recognize what is light and what is darkness. Duality is needed. And yet so many people in the spiritual and personal development industry are asking you to just stop seeing all of the darkness, to ignore those parts of you by just focusing on love and light. And I know this is something that a lot of you have probably witnessed already in some way, shape, or capacity. Perhaps it's on Facebook or on Instagram when someone is sharing something very real and then someone comments on it and just says, "I'm just sending you love and light." They just slap love and light on everything, thinking that that's what's going to make it better. Telling people to repress their anger and their sadness, and that's fucked up. I have so many clients. In fact, the majority of my coaching clients come to me after working with other coaches. And this is fact. The majority of my clients come to me after working with other coaches. And they come to me feeling broken. They come to me feeling so much shame about themselves. They come to me feeling guilt for having feelings that aren't all good or perceived as good. I had a client just recently who I had to work with through her anger because for so long she thought anger wasn't okay. People want to skip. They tell you to skip through all of that and just dive right into forgiveness. Forgiveness is this fad right now. I mean, forgiveness is important. Don't get me wrong. We do need to forgive others and ourselves, but there is a whole myriad of emotions that we must first feel in order to get to that space of forgiveness. Because if we just jump from the pain, from the trauma to the forgiveness, then we are bypassing the natural progression, the natural healing process that we are built with. And that shit will turn up at some point in time. The anger will come back. The sadness will come back. The grief will come back. People want to heal and forgive so quickly because there are spiritual teachers and quote unquote gurus, I fucking hate that word, who are telling you that forgiveness is possible. Write a few forgiveness letters, throw it in the fire, do a new moon ceremony, all that shit. But they don't talk about the anger. They don't talk about the sadness. They don't talk about any of that, which makes people feel like shit for having real feelings, right? And maybe this is you. Maybe you felt like this before. Maybe you felt like shit for being angry at an ex who cheated on you, and you're still angry 4 years later. Well, my question to you is, have you ever given yourself the opportunity to really feel that anger? to really feel it, to sit with it, to be with it, to get curious about it. Because when you give yourself the opportunity to feel what you are actually feeling, to feel your emotions that are actually coming up, I promise you, you will work through them. If we think about children, think about babies. If a baby is crying, the baby's upset and they're crying, eventually that baby will stop crying. They don't cry forever. The feeling passes. It is the same with us in our adult years, yet we forget. We feel like it's bad. We feel ashamed of having these feelings, and this industry is perpetuating that shame. It's amplifying it. There's this other thing that's said a lot, and it's the fact it's you are 100% responsible for your reality. And I'm going to fess up here and say that I used to be one of those people who would say that when I was very early on in the personal development game, because this is what was thrown at me all the time. Now, don't get me wrong. I am a proud supporter of the Own Your Shit movement. In fact, I consider myself a pioneer in that movement. But there's a difference between owning your shit and trying to take on responsibility for things that really, truly are out of your control. So there's something that is so wrong about this statement that you are 100% responsible for your reality. Because what they're actually referring to is your perceived reality, and everyone perceives reality in their own way, right? Reality is what we are truly living. And in the spiritual world, they want to say shit like, oh, you've chosen this life, you chose your parents, you chose your circumstances and all that, and in theory, yes, I get it. I'm a very spiritual being. I get that. I get what you're saying. But to say that to someone who has, let's say, been raped or been horribly abused or is living in the most dire of circumstances, to say that you are 100% responsible for your reality is going to do more fucking damage than good. The truth is that we are responsible for our thoughts, for our words, for our actions, for our reactions, for our perceptions. But, to the man who molested me years ago, I'm not responsible for that. I was in the peripheral of his actions. What I am responsible for is how I choose to move forward from that. So we have to, as true leaders, stop perpetuating this idea of spiritual shaming and making people feel shit about their reality and what they're actually going through, and instead show compassion and understand that everyone is going through their own process, their own journey. There's another saying that I fucking hate, and I did this YouTube video on it a couple years ago now. You can go to my YouTube page and check it out. But it's the saying that everyone is a mirror. Everyone is a mirror. Now, this is something that I do practice. I practice mirror work. When something happens, I look at the situation and I'm like, okay, what in this do I have to learn? What is really a reflection of my own inner dialogue? And it's healthy to do these things. It's healthy to dig into your perceptions and to dig into what is actually happening versus your perceived experience. But to say that everyone is a mirror, that completely disregards the fact that everyone has free will to do and say what they want, despite the ramifications that follow. Okay? So everyone has free will. Everyone can say whatever they want, whenever they want. They can do whatever they want, whenever they want. And that isn't always a mirror. The law of attraction, yes, it exists in terms of energy, right? If you think about physics, like attracts like, that is truth. But to say that everything in this world is something that we have fucking attracted, that is what is fucking with people's minds and doing more damage than good. That is spiritual shaming. There's this other I've seen this so many times, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to word this, but I've been in, I guess, quote unquote, arguments on Facebook where people, have their spiritual beliefs, and then I'll go in and say, okay, well, here's what I see, and here's what I know from my experience, and here's why I believe this does more damage than good. And then they'll rise up and say, oh, well, when you're in this state of higher consciousness, or when you are further along in your evolution or living in this higher dimension, you'll see it this way. And that is spiritual shaming. We are all here evolving despite what you think. Everyone is evolving at their own pace, in their own way. I mean, that's just how the world works. We're here, we evolve. But just because people don't see things the same way you do does not mean that they are not evolved or of a higher consciousness or living in a higher dimension. I mean, there's so many spiritual leaders that are saying, oh yeah, there's so people who live in just the three-dimensional world don't see what's going on in the actual world because there's more than three dimensions. And yeah, I believe that too. But I also know that we are human beings in physical form, in physical 3D form, living in a 3D environment called planet Earth. Okay. So there's a very physical aspect to this that is real. And the more that people try and separate the soul from the physical body, the more disconnected we become from the reality in which we are living. So there's a major problem when spiritual leaders or people or whatever are saying that, you're not, when you reach this point in your evolution, this is what you'll start to think. That's them putting themselves on a pedestal and putting everyone else beneath them. And it's funny, right? For an industry that preaches to heal the separation that they see in the world, right? We hear a lot about this. We want to heal the separation. We are all one. We hear that so much. The idea of oneness. And yet these are the very same people that are perpetuating the divide. They are creating the separation that they so desperately claim they are resolving. And that's fucked up. The reason that they're adding to that divide and the separation is because they continue to claim that they know more than we do. Yet they won't admit it, that that's what they're doing. Now, I get that so many of these people have the best intentions in mind, but to truly be of this, how do I want to call it? To truly be in a space of like spiritual and personal expansion, it's not about separating yourself from another. It's not about claiming that one is better than the other. It's really about embracing all facets of who we are. Spiritual shaming is rampant in this industry right now, and it needs to stop. And the only way that it's going to start, that people are going to start to see different, is if we start to present what is different, which is really empowering truth. And empowering truth sounds like this. Empowering truth is like, we all have shadows. We all have shadows. But those shadows help us understand how to navigate life. Those shadows help us uncover our real gifts. If it wasn't for my shadows or my darkest days, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. If it wasn't for my current shadows, if it wasn't for my, dealing with anxiety daily, I wouldn't really fully understand what it would mean to be at peace. It's this duality that helps us be who we are. It's this duality that helps us evolve into who we are here to be. And love and light isn't the thing that's going to heal the world. Everyone says it's an absence of love and light that is causing all the destruction and the evil. That's not it. It's that kind of shit that is causing the destruction and evil. Because by saying that there are people who have an absence of love and light is again saying that there is a separation, there is a divide, that people are different. So again, the very thing that you are preaching to heal is the thing that you are perpetuating. So an empowering truth is that, We have love, we have hate, we have light, we have darkness. And by embracing all these things, we learn how to navigate through our lives in the most empowering of ways, because no longer are we repressing parts of us, but we are now owning all parts of us. We are now aware of all parts of us. We are now choosing to see all parts of us. If you're in the personal spiritual development industry, if you're a coach, if you're a healer, if you're someone who has perhaps done some spiritual shaming and you're just uncovering it, trust me, I've been there. I used to do this, but now I'm fully awake to it. All I ask is take responsibility for the bullshit that you're dishing out, because people are listening. People are listening. They're hanging on to your every word. There are people out there who are so desperately seeking support and love and help. They're hanging on to your every word. So it is your divine responsibility to share truth, and share truth that will help empower versus to disempower and make people feel like shit, or make people feel ashamed, or make people feel guilty. Because people are not broken. People are just learning how to navigate life to the best of their abilities through their circumstances, through their experiences, through their shadows, and through their light. And that's what we need to understand as a collective, because that's the only way we're going to fucking evolve, right? Not through shaming people into getting better, or shaming people into evolving, or shaming people into rising into a higher state of consciousness. That's not going to help the situation. It's exacerbating it. The idea of pedestals, if you put yourself on a pedestal, or if you see people on pedestals, that is also creating a disservice in our industry. So if you look at people, even if you look at me and you put me on a pedestal, take me off the fucking pedestal, because we're all one. Okay? I don't want to be on a fucking pedestal. I want to see you eye to eye, because this is how we heal. It's not through putting people on pedestals and seeing people as better and seeing people as more evolved. That's not what this is about. This is about seeing each other in a state of evolution, whatever that looks like for each person. And it's going to be different. If you see people engaging in spiritual shaming online, speak up. Because this bullshit is penetrating our industry at such a phenomenal rate. I mean, it's fucked up. But if you see it happening, please call it out. Be brave enough to call it out. Because again, it's doing more damage than good. So that's it for my rant on spiritual shaming. If you resonated with this episode /rant, please share it. And don't forget to hit subscribe. I want to thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Love Punch, where I'm challenging thought leaders, influencers, and entrepreneurs like you to make a lasting impact. I would truly appreciate your support. So drop me a rating and review on iTunes so we can get Love Punch on the fucking charts. If you have any questions or you just want to say hi, please reach out. I'm on social media everywhere. My handle is @IamRuby. And I will see you back here next week for a brand new episode of Love Punch.